Xbox Game Pass. So, look, on the one hand, I think it's still pretty much like the best deal in gaming if you consistently play Xbox Game Pass games. Even with the recent price hike and stuff, what you get for the money that you pay, if you are checking games out constantly, I mean, it's a whole library of games, and it is just something that will save you a lot of money if you are consistently engaging with those titles. But on the other hand, from a business perspective, I don't think Microsoft has a handle on Xbox Game Pass and its viability. I feel like they're constantly changing things and adjusting based on just Game Pass not meeting certain expectations. And keep in mind that Microsoft is betting hard on Game Pass because their whole thing now is that you don't need a console to play Xbox, and so they're relying on Game Pass to be essentially the main primary platform through which people can engage with Xbox games. And a lot of it involves just detaching Xbox from just the box and making it playable via the cloud on, your Amazon Fire Sticks, on your smart TVs, on your smartphones and tablets, so on and so forth. But Game Pass needs to take off for this to really spread in a way that they want. But that's just not been happening. Xbox Game Pass subscriptions have stagnated, and that's why they recently closed studios like Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, both of who made critically acclaimed games. These are studios that Xbox and the executive team there promised that, they would nurture, that, they talked about how they made the mistake of shutting down Lionhead Studios back in the day, and they wouldn't make the same mistake again with the studios that they've acquired. But history has repeated itself, and it may not necessarily be Xbox's fault. It might be Microsoft, the overlords who have kind of come down hard, because the gaming business of Microsoft and Xbox is significantly bigger now with the acquisition of ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard. It's no longer just a blip in the radar financially speaking. It is now a major part of Microsoft as a company. There's huge investments now that Microsoft executives expect a return on. And because Game Pass subscription numbers have been stagnating and not been growing at a desirable rate, they have to make some cuts. And that includes shutting down studios that made critically acclaimed games and games that sold well enough, but did not exceed certain financial metrics that would keep investors happy. And the reason I bring all of this up is because Xbox Game Pass has made yet another change, and I feel like this is only going to muddy the waters further, and I just don't feel like this is going to be beneficial to Game Pass. So right here we have Twitter user Clobril, who decided to make their own chart detailing what the recent changes are. Apart from the fact that there has been a price hike, so for example, Game Pass Ultimate is now $20 a month instead of $17 a month. But beyond that, you've got this chart right here that details the features that you do and don't have depending on which level of Game Pass you get, which tier you subscribe to. So you've got Game Pass Core, Game Pass Standard, Game Pass Ultimate, and then PC Game Pass. It's kind of its own separate thing. So Core is $10 a month or $75 a year. Game Pass Standard is $15 a month, and then Game Pass Ultimate is $20 a month. Now, the thing about Standard and Core is that you don't get day one game editions. Game Pass Core specifically is basically like Xbox Live, but renamed. It's primarily there to allow you to play games online. It does supply a limited catalog of 25 games on console, but it doesn't give you the hundreds of games that you would expect from Game Pass, and it certainly does not give you the day one game editions for Xbox published video games from companies such as Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda, Activision Blizzard, you name it, all under the Microsoft and Xbox umbrella. So that being more of like an Xbox Live replacement, that one makes more sense that it lacks so many features. But then you think, okay, here we have Xbox Game Pass Standard that is $15 a month. Surely this one has all the features you might expect from Game Pass, but Game Pass Standard, while it does have the Game Pass catalog of hundreds of games, it does not have the day one game editions from first-party companies and studios and published titles. Instead, now to get the day one game editions, you have to subscribe to the more expensive Xbox Game Pass Ultimate $20 a month subscription model. Before this, Xbox Game Pass was much more easily understood. You get Game Pass for a fee and you get everything, the catalog of games and those day one launches for Xbox published titles. And now it's this kind of slightly more confusing format where, I mean, people who follow the news and hardcore gamers will understand, but in terms of the masses, in terms of, you know, your average Joe who might be interested in Xbox Game Pass, now they have to look at multiple tiers and realize that, you know, there is this more expensive version that they have to get in order to get those day one game editions, instead of just it being an integral part of Game Pass that's there across the board. And I don't know that this is gonna help the Game Pass subscription numbers grow, which they probably know the goal of these changes isn't growth, but rather to make the most out of the present situation and squeeze more out of the present customers to make up for the fact that Xbox isn't growing at an appropriate rate. They need to charge more because Microsoft demands that there's some financial viability, or that in the books for investors, Game Pass just looks better in terms of the kind of money that it can make. Obviously, they're going to have to release more compelling just Xbox published titles that are exclusive to Xbox and Game Pass, and see how those releases boost these numbers. And it just feels like the cadence of really high-profile first-party releases from Game Pass has just stagnated, and we have seen some great upcoming titles from their recent Xbox showcase, which was a killer showcase and definitely made me more optimistic for the future. But until those games start coming out consistently, Game Pass numbers are simply not going to grow. People are not going to find a reason to really subscribe to Game Pass Ultimate because they just don't have the games. Xbox doesn't have the games to justify this monthly fee. The only justifiable reason for Game Pass right now is the hundreds of games from third-party publishers that maybe you want to play consistently throughout the course of the year and save money instead of buying individual games at full price. But then there's the fact that Xbox games will also come to PC. Like, that's the plan on the part of Microsoft and Xbox, is to unify the Xbox ecosystem and make sure that Xbox published titles aren't just exclusive to the console experience. And you got this PC Game Pass plan that is $12 a month, which is cheaper than the Game Pass Ultimate, and it comes with the PC library of games on top of those day one game editions. So it just feels like it gives people less reason to engage with other aspects of Xbox and just stick to PC gaming. But what this effectively is a price increase for Game Pass. They are giving you multiple tiers, but anything below Ultimate, honestly, unless, again, third-party games are your primary thing, I feel like it defeats the purpose of Game Pass to go with anything below Ultimate. Those day one game editions from all of these Xbox studios, that's the big juicy bit of Game Pass, that you don't have to spend $70 or whatever on all of those major releases. You get those on day one when they're out. That's a major appeal of Game Pass that is now kind of diluted with the implementation of an Xbox Game Pass standard. What this should look like is just Xbox Game Pass standard should have Game Pass catalog, the hundreds of games from third parties, and day one game editions. And the Ultimate should have extra elements like maybe the EA Play and the Riot Games stuff. I feel like if that were the case, if the standard still had the day one game editions from Xbox and Ultimate only offered additional elements from other subscription services like EA Play and Riot Games benefits, that'd be one thing. But to remove the flagship feature of Game Pass from the standard, and also to make Xbox Cloud Gaming now relegated to the Ultimate Game Pass subscription tier, that essentially makes this just a price hike that is disguised in multiple tiers. This is the one you want to get if you really want to take full advantage of Game Pass Ultimate, and it's now $20 a month. It's similar to what happened with Apex Legends recently, where you can see right here, if you go to Steam charts, that its player numbers were growing once upon a time, and in recent months, and years that started to dwindle. We're now seeing the game's player numbers stagnate and even kind of start to decrease. And so what do? They make the Battle Pass more expensive by splitting the Battle Pass in two and charging full price for each of them, basically making the Battle Pass twice as expensive and also not allowing you to earn the premium Battle Passes in that game through in-game currency, through gameplay. You now have to spend real currency. It's about squeezing more out of the existing customer base to make up for the diminishing players, the stagnating player base. It feels like it's a similar situation with Xbox Game Pass, where they're effectively trying to make it so that people have to spend more in order to make up for the lackluster performance of Game Pass and the fact that it's not making up for the billions that have been invested in the purchase of ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard. It's not recouping that cost enough. And so they're shutting down studios that are beloved and made acclaimed games, and now increasing the price point of services, masquerading all of this with tiers. But if you go to tiers below Ultimate, it just like the value is nowhere near enough, or just the feature set that's been removed is too substantial. The day one game editions and the cloud gaming, for this to feel like a tier that you should engage in, or to make this feel like a smart play on the part of Xbox to split Game Pass up like this. It just feels like Microsoft is flailing with Game Pass, and while it is still one of the best, if not the best deals in gaming, it feels like slowly but surely the value is becoming less and less. Time will tell how this will all play out. It's not doom and gloom for Game Pass, but it's definitely not where Microsoft, from a business perspective, wants it to be, and that's why we're seeing them, change things up so much and experiment with different models. But I feel like that's starting to hurt Game Pass. It's starting to just make things less clear as to what the purpose of Game Pass is, and the less unified subscription tiers now, it all just kind of, I feel like, diminishes the optics of Game Pass and the value perspective of it. But that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Xbox Game Pass. Is it a subscription service that you are using personally, or are there reasons for why you've decided to kind of stop using this and purchase full games instead? And what do you think Xbox Game Pass needs to get those numbers to start to increase instead of stagnating as they have been lately? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.